We will first hear from Pat Brown, who's the area manager of the Sovereign Lands of Idaho. And then after his comments, then we're going to turn our attention to Utah. So Pat, do you want to come on up? And the way we're going to do this, we're going to hear from these folks, and then after that we will impanel this whole group up here, and we'll put up the bulletproof glass and have a we'll have a panel discussion. We'll be able to get our questions answered and kind of just work through this whole thing. So I think if we kind of let them all get through their presentations and be writing down your questions, and then we'll see where we go from there. Thanks, Pat.
Well, I was going to say that Claudia didn't really tell me just what I'm supposed to be talking about down here, and certainly didn't say anything about a panel discussion, but I guess we'll wing it. I'm really pleased to be down here. I've been with the Department of Lands for, it scares me to say this, but almost 24 years. And I've been involved at various times with management of Bear Lake, so I understand some of the cycles and that sort of stuff you folks have experienced. The Department of Land's involvement in management of Bear Lake is really, we wear two hats. The first hat is the state of Idaho owns the bed of the lake and is charged to manage it for the benefit of the general public. And so it's sort of an ownership hat that we wear in that case. The other hat we wear is the regulatory hat, which deals with Idaho's Lake Protection Act, which regulates encroachments on navigable water, or actually navigable lakes, and even it's extended to reservoirs under certain conditions. Out of our Idaho Falls office, we manage 3 lakes: Bear Lake, Henry's Lake, and Williams Lake out of Idaho, or out of Salmon. On those 3 lakes, we have issued a total of about 200 encroachment permits over the years. And the point I'm getting to is that the Nav Waters program in eastern Idaho is fairly small within the overall state program. And we struggle at times dealing with Bear Lake in particular because most of our rules and laws are really aimed at the large lakes in northern Idaho. And by contrast, the 3 largest lakes, Coeur d'Alene, Pend Oreille, and Priest Lake, up in the Panhandle, there's between, last number I heard was I think 12,000 encroachment permits that we deal with up there. And so we have full-time positions. A lot of manpower goes into dealing with those issues. Down here, I have a staff of 9 people to manage 720,000 acres scattered across the eastern third of Idaho, and we just aren't able to be as involved down here as I'd like to be. The ownership part of it, I know a lot of people get frustrated that we aren't as involved in some of the issues. Historically, we've had some money to deal with weed control and things like that. With the current budget crunch, our agency and Department of Agriculture, which is the money we had for weed control on public trust lands, came through Department of Agriculture, worked out an agreement that pulls us out of it. And so Department of Agriculture is the one charged with dealing with noxious weeds, a lot of the vegetation type issues. They're also in charge of the quagga mussels and the milfoil work and all that kind of stuff around the state. So that makes sense to me. So our involvement really gets into actually, authorizing, we don't have any lease, well, we do have one lease. The small marina over at East Shore has a submerged lands lease for its footprint on the bed of the lake. I think we charge them $100 a year just because it's been dry for so long. It's not a big money maker. We've issued a couple of land use permits where we've needed to be creative when the water's been low. Brian has a land use permit for his operation up there by Bear Lake Hot Springs. And then the other one that we've issued was for Bear Lake West Access Road, because those kind of things are not really addressed under the Lake Protection Act, which is aimed more at aids to navigation. On the permitting side, I guess there's a lot of information out there. The department's homepage address is www.idl.idaho.gov. If you just Google Idaho Department of Lands, it'll take you there. I'm personally not happy with the way it's organized, so what I tell you to do is go to the A to Z index, go to N, and click on Nav Waters, and there's links to all of the laws that relate to it. There's links that relate to all of the administrative rules that we operate under for permitting encroachments. There are links to actually our procedures manual, so you know what our specific direction is for dealing with some of these, with these kind of things. We're working towards trying to make our Nav Waters program self-sustaining. We've done a series of rules revisions the last 2 legislative sessions, I believe, maybe the last 3, because in case you didn't know, the legislature has to approve basically all rules, administrative rules that departments operate under. It used to be that the application fee for an encroachment permit was, I think, $25 or $50. It's now $300 for a simple, single-family boat dock, up to over $1,000 for a non-navigational encroachment. We make that distinction between navigational encroachments, which relate to, navigating the lake, boat docks, buoys, that sort of thing. I'm trying to remember the other points I wanted to make. A couple of things I just wanted to touch on real quickly. The Lake Protection Act was passed in 1974, and so anything that was in place before then was essentially grandfathered. And then as the policy procedure developed in those first years, there were some things that were authorized and permitted back in the 70s, even into the 80s, that we would not authorize or permit now. But those permits are still valid because they've been maintained. Things like we will not issue a permit for a swim dock. They're a hazard to navigation. There's about 3 of them around the lake that are properly authorized and are legal, but we will not issue a permit for additional swim docks. There are a few places right here through Fish Haven where property owners had built seawalls that extend out into the lake. And I've checked, and those are all pretty much, everything I was able to get a set of aerial imagery from 1977, which is as close as I could get to 74. And all of those, when I've looked at them, look like they were in place before 74. So there's, basically those are grandfathered in. I'm feeling kind of scattered. I was trying to be focused, and I'm jumping all around, but that's the gist of our involvement. Like I said, I'm really pleased to be here today. Happy to answer any questions. Probably will have to give you some answers you might not like, but they're the answers I have to give. So thank you.